Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartiya and welcome to TFiR Let's Talk. And today we have with us Travis Stanfield, co-founder and CEO of Stacklet. Travis, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Swapnil. It is a pleasure to chat with you today.
Excellent. You folks recently announced a State of Cloud Governance survey. So the focus of today's discussion is going to be around survey, but since you are on the show again, and I quickly want to just remind our viewers, what is Stacklet all about?
Sure. So Stacklet is a governance as code platform, and governance as code is a new paradigm that allows and empowers developers and development teams to codify best practices for the organization. So this can be things related to cost, related to compliance, related to security, and it's, as we'll see in the survey results, a vital, very important challenge that all organizations are facing in the cloud. And this new paradigm in the form of governance as code is really the key answer to the challenge.
Now let's talk about the survey. First of all, is this the first time or you folks have been doing this survey on a regular basis? What was the goal for, what kind of insight you're trying to gain through this survey?
Yeah, so the way the survey worked, we started off just trying to get an understanding of what governance is as a challenge. So is it a challenge for you and your environment? So starting off there. After that, we talk about where governance sits in terms of a priority and what within the scope of governance are your priorities or priorities to your organization. Next, we look at the biggest challenges for security. And last, we look at the biggest challenges for cost.
We have talked about this previously with you folks in previous shows, but just to get some foundation for our viewers is, how would you define cloud governance? What exactly is it?
Yeah, good question. So we consider it to be incorporating FinOps, right? Your asset management and your financial posture, IT ops, compliance, and security.
There's so much paradigm shifts happening there, but the fact sometimes is that developers know they still do more or less the same things. A lot of things are actually falling into their bucket while we do use different labels. It could be DevOps, DevSecOps, or NetOps. When it comes to cloud governance, how much awareness is there about it? How many people are kind of aware of it, and then how much do you see in the practice?
That's a good question as well. I would say that the key advantage of cloud is that developers can self-service on infrastructure using a few lines of code, and this is a large productivity lift. However, the developers don't always know or understand the governance controls that are at play or at the heart of an organization. So even though they may be aware that they're working in an organization that has high standards, they may not be fully aligned to what those standards are. And they may not, if they violate them, know the best or easiest way to fix them. And what governance as code gives them the ability to do is to balance their infrastructure as code by codifying those best practices and doing so in a way that's declarative. So now you have effectively design the end state for what your cloud should be. And if the infrastructure as code that the developers are creating doesn't align, then it doesn't basically get to exist there for very long, or we have opportunity to remediate it or to notify the developer to really bring along a collaboration and a shared responsibility model for cloud.
Great. Once again, thank you for explaining that. And now let's go back to the survey. What are some of the key highlights, because that will also touch upon some of the things that we just discussed?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the starting point is how many of the respondents agreed that governance was a pivotal inhibitor to cloud adoption, right? So 86% is a large amount of folks that are facing this challenge. Especially from a sample size of over 700. So The next kind of key point is around um, beyond cloud adoption, what are your priorities as an organization? And again, several of the themes around governance that I mentioned, your cost optimization, getting your best practices implemented for your organization, strengthening your security posture, improving visibility. Those were the top priorities for these organizations. Then what we did was we drilled into security, right? The biggest challenges for security. The top three were collaboration, the existence of manual processes and workflows, and then difficulty understanding the compliance policies at the heart of the organization, just like I mentioned at the onset. We also then looked into the top challenges for cost optimization, and it was very similar. Certainly collaboration was in the top three as well, but also key challenges for cost had to do with different development tools and processes, especially across different clouds, and lack of visibility was another thematic problem for both security and cost. So the challenges are very similar, right? The challenges are profound, and several of them we addressed through the governance as code paradigm shift that we're at the center and the driving force behind.
One thing that when I was reading the report, was that there was a lack of collaboration and communication across groups was also seen as, one of the hurdles there, because it sounded like as much as we talk about it, we are kind of creating soft silos where, we are with the cloud native, we're trying to break the old silos where you don't live in your own ivory tower and do things. But it seems like, that is not happening in real. So not only based on this survey, but your own experience as well, do you think that is still the case?
Well, I prefer to think of it as federations, right? So there are federations of development teams, and it's in a lot of ways for organizations a good thing that they're able to be autonomous, because that gives them the ability to move as fast as possible. And that's really what a lot of developers want to do at the end of the day. They want to quickly solve the most important problems to the business. Now, the counterbalance to this, or the challenge that's I think that's showing up in this survey, is if you're an organization and you need to apply uniform standards, uniform best practices, uniform controls, how do you do that across a federation? You don't want to bottleneck the experience or essentially restrict the key value proposition of cloud, which is that self-service empowerment productivity model. But in order to do so, you need a tool such as a governance as code solution or a governance as code platform like Stacklet to really balance out and give that empowerment of uniformity across the federation, and do so in a way that's going to continue to keep up with all of those federated teams. I like to say that you need an as code solution to solve your as code challenges and your as code opportunities.
Based on this survey, and of course, some of these insights that you shared, of course, we don't have time to talk about a whole playbook, but are there certain things that, enterprise users, customers can do to kind of, improve there? Because when we do look at cloud, it's not one thing, there are so many things. And when you talk about cloud native, it's not a thing, it's a process, it's how we do things. So if you can share some, that would be great.
I think oftentimes organizations make the mistake of maybe of two different ends of a spectrum. They may prevent or restrict access to cloud, or they may be risk managing their way to it, which is basically reducing their opportunity because they might be moving slower than other organizations who have embraced it. On the other end of the spectrum, perhaps they're moving too quickly. They are, let's say, giving their developers too much self-service and too much freedom. And that carries with it risk of the misconfigurations that can cost them money and reputational challenges. So where you want to be is able to move as quickly as those federated development teams are capable of. And that's really the key pattern and theme that we're trying to evangelize and promote, because we've seen it play out dramatically for a lot of organizations who have been able to get to the cloud, scale in the cloud, and be successful in the cloud over time. Those are the patterns and practices that they have already battle tested. And that's really what we're able to redeliver to other customers and other users.
Travis, thank you so much for taking time out today and talk about this survey, and also share some insights into how companies can improve their cloud posture. It was a great discussion. And as usual, I would love to have you back on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swapnil. And I would love to be back. This was a great conversation, and I can't wait to do it all over again.